Let's get things started off, Rudy, with probably the biggest story for us this week. We got to talk about Jackson Cantwell committing to Miami, the number one recruit, not the number one recruit in his position, but the number one recruit, the 6'8", 325-pound lineman out of Nixa, Missouri, choosing Miami over Georgia and Oregon. What are your initial thoughts? How did you take it yesterday?
Don't you love when the experts say that there's like an 80% chance that he's going to Georgia? And all
Yeah.
you see is how happy he's been with Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal and his visits on campus and seeing him from, my seats last season. No, that's a big dude. Look, anytime you can get the number one offensive lineman recruit in the country, and also bolster what already is probably the strength of your offense is your offensive line. Can't say enough about it. That's where it starts. That's where winning happens. That's where you protect your quarterback. That's where you recruit your quarterbacks. That's where you recruit your skill position guys. It all comes from there. So when you bring in the number one guy in the country, look, whether they pan out or not, because Miami has had a few swings and misses over the years with number one overall by position or, top five overall recruits. I think what I find funny is that in terms of like highest recruited players of all time, the one that historically has been the very, very top is DJ Williams.
Yeah.
Back when the star services weren't really that well known at the time, but like consensus number one, like best guy coming out was DJ back in like 1999 or 2000, whenever it was that he came out of De La Salle in California. Other than that, you could think of some other guys that kind of were. That's the last one that I could think of Miami really hitting like a home run with talent wise. Because you think of names like Willie Williams or Arthur Brown, other guys that were like top five overall recruits. It just unfortunately didn't end up panning out. It wasn't like they went somewhere else and was successful. It's just one of those where it's just that's tough about that age. So I think now in this new era with recruiting services where really if you're number one consensus across the board, it usually means something nowadays. So fingers crossed you stay healthy because that should be an anchor for the offensive line for years to come.
Yeah, this guy's a beast. I was semi following him during the season because I remember he visited and attended. I want to say it was either the Duke game or it was one of the later half games in the season. And I remember seeing him, and I just remember this really tall guy. Pictures with Mario and what's the O line coach? What's his name?
Alex Mirabal.
Alex Mirabal, and Mirabal in itself is a short stature kind of guy, which is really always funny. I always think like one of the shortest guys on the coaching staff is coaching the biggest guys on the team. But I kind of seen him visiting. Said he had a great visit here and there following. I actually didn't get back into following this kid till a few weeks ago when he kind of postponed. So he was supposed to make this announcement, I want to say about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then he announced, "Hey, I'm going to push back my announcement by a couple weeks." And he announced an official visit to Georgia right before this visit. And so there was this huge like battle between us, Oregon, and Georgia. But you kind of saw Georgia pulling away in the last couple weeks, and so it was very interesting in the last 48 hours to see some of the pundits and some of the people who follow recruiting say that, hey, I think Miami's sneaking in this, even though you're hearing a lot of reports coming out of Athens and out of Georgia saying that this is their guy and they've got this on lock. There was a lot of smoke. A lot of the big college football pundits were playing these hypotheticals of what if, Jackson went to Miami. And you and I both know that reporters, we respect our sources, so we're not going to out and uh, put them out there, but we will definitely send the message up, right? And so a little inside baseball for any of you guys that aren't familiar with the news industry is if you see someone talking about something, that means a source has kind of corroborated it. People don't usually talk about things on a consistent basis unless they have something going with it. So I had a very good feeling going into yesterday that he was going to commit, and then just seeing him commit, and there was actually a moment where I guess the hat when he committed didn't fit right, so he kind of threw it off. And then I was like, "Wait, what?" And but then he unzipped his jacket, and you saw the Canes football shirt, and that's when I knew. I'm like, "It's a lock." Super professional kid. I love what he said. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Like I said, I'm hearing nothing but great things about this kid. So I mean, just by his measurements alone, I think he's definitely gonna up the ante in the O line room. I think he's gonna be coming in at a perfect time with Francis Mauigoa, probably on his way out when he's on his way in. So it'll be a nice little handoff right there. And speaking of handoff, this guy is a shot put champion. Both of his parents are Olympians. His dad is yoked to the freaking max. This guy looks like he's still this guy. If I could put it, if we could sign his dad, I would sign his dad right now because his dad is a beast. Um,
Set him up as a strength coach. No,
literally, I
they're
mean,
just
this
get
guy
get him
is.
under Aaron Feld. Yeah.
I literally like was like watching the live stream and I'm looking at his dad. I'm like, how do we get his dad? How many years of eligibility does his dad have? Because that's who I want. That guy's a beast. But joking aside, what do you think is the biggest impact you see Cantwell making?
Depth. I mean, you're talking about health is always an issue with offensive linemen. You talk about they get rolled up on certain plays. Things happen where they end up taking the wrong step. It's always getting rolled up on somebody. Like when you watch your entire line, you see they all have knee braces on. It's
Yep.
never a good thing
Yeah.
because that also then makes more of a likelihood of there being ankle injuries down the line. It's like there's all sorts of stuff that happens. Like you should wear something for protection, but you also don't want to have like yourself completely hindered in movement. So yeah, you never know. He might be one of those guys that starts day one because he's just that kind of a talent. He could be a little raw, may need a little bit of time, underneath somebody else learning the system. The term you always hear with Alex Mirabal is cross training. So just because you're a
Right.
left tackle or you're a right guard doesn't mean you're going to be playing that only position. You're going to learn how to play everything from center out. So in that way, I think you might see him work early. If Miami starts blowing some teams out, you'll see him obviously in the game third and fourth quarter, which would be really nice. And if he ends up being one of those guys that makes a huge impact in fall and spring practice next year because he's a 2026 recruit,
Yeah.
that would be really really nice to see. But it's yeah, that's where I see him kind of playing in is just in terms of depth. He might be your day one guy. That's great. You have him for a few years. If not, you got somebody who is who the most highest sought after recruit sitting right there in the wings, ready to go.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. To me, I think his biggest impact right now will be some of the intangibles off the field stuff. So we kind of kicked the show off talking about getting the number one recruit, number one overall recruit. I really want to focus in on that because Miami has gotten some number one recruits in their positions or maybe number two. But to get the number all overall recruit, you got to look at that kind of like a draft, right? You getting the first pick. And I think with having Cam go number one to the Titans in the NFL draft, and then immediately following up with us getting Jackson Cantwell to commit as a number one overall recruit. This is a groundswell of momentum that the program desperately needs. I think with the way we finished last year, with that little bit of like sputtering up at the end, not making the ACC championship, not making the college football playoffs, I think that left a sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths. I think in just the overall view of our program across the country, it kind of deflated a lot of people's expectations and the trajectory maybe of where the program was going. I'm not going to lie, I was a little worried with the trajectory of the program with the way the season ended last year, and then seeing guys like I think it was Isaiah Horton going to Alabama, not being able to keep those guys. And then while not explicitly said, but the kind of the undertones of Emory Williams not panning out as the quarterback we thought he was going to be, having to go get Carson Beck, who in himself is still a question mark. Still think he's going to be good, but I think this in itself gave Miami a lifeline. You could see the excitement in Mario Cristobal yesterday at ACC Media Days, screaming in the hallway. Such a cool video. I love to see coaches to see that passion because you know that these kids aren't just numbers to them. These are living, breathing family members that they're expanding, and it's nice to see that the program is still respected, especially Mario as a former O line player and the program we're building. You know what I mean? With Francis Mauigoa probably going to be a first round draft pick next year if he chooses to declare, which we all think he will. I think this is going to be a groundswell for other recruits. I mean, again, a lot of people are already kind of pivoting now to okay, who's next, right? And I think that's a great thing to look at. But I also want to kind of stay on this. Like you said, I think DJ Williams being the last one, and then I did some search. I think it was like 1991 was the last time they had like a number one overall recruit. I'm trying to think of the D lineman's name, um, but
91 could have been. It wasn't Warren Sapp, was it?
no, it was someone else. I can't remember. I said it in the chat. I did a Google search and God
Yeah.
bless AI. It was like the first thing they gave us. But I'm going to say some things right now that are probably going to piss off a lot of Miami fans, but I think they're things that like you have to look at and to move forward, right? We've been mediocre at best the last 25 years since the 2002 team. We've been since you and I have attended Miami in 2003. Well, me 2004, but you 2003, uh,
4.
or you 2004 too. Also,
Yeah.
I came in my sophomore year. You came in your freshman. It's been a precipitous decline, right? With sputters here and there up. We have not been a dominant program, and this was nice to see because you're starting to see talent that not only the country respects, but that we not only that we respect, but the country respects as well. I'm not sure if you saw this, and I want to kind of go, this is where I'm kind of going within a conversation. Next is so he was the overall consensus number one player until he committed. Did you see how ESPN dropped him to number 3? And then there was another one. I think it was 27 Sports or someone else dropped him to number 2 or number 3 as soon as he committed. On 3 still kept him as number 1, which I love. But it looks like some other programs, some other publications have devalued his value because of his commitment to UM. What do you think that says about our program and the just the overall nature of giving these recruits stars?
Uh, do we have to use the old like tired statement of the U is back when they say that because they love to hate, everyone wants to have a villain, and it's something that you've seen for a long time. It's as soon as somebody commits to Miami, their draft stock, their value, their recruitment stock, their star rating immediately takes a dip. I mean, look, Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. It was not close. But the story kept being, well, is Shador Sanders going to go number 1 overall? He ends up not even going on day 1. He ends up not going on day 2.
Right.
So the entire narrative around his draft day was not even about the number 1 pick, who is this generational quarterback who has the right mindset, who says the right things, who does all of the studying, that is all of the things that you ask of somebody, and had these electric moments in college football and was one of the Heisman Trophy finalists.
Absolutely.
Yet it was not about him whatsoever. You see the exact same thing in recruiting all the time. You see it also in the transfer portal. So when you have
Yeah.
players that are leaving another program and coming to Miami, you saw it with Cam Ward, you saw it with Carson Beck.
Mhm.
As soon as they pick Miami and that U graphic shows up, all of a sudden it's not because they were that great of a talent. Oh, we don't know what they're going to do down there. It's something that you do see a lot in terms of like how they grade talent, because traditionally in the draft, the teams that get the players that get drafted are the ones off of the teams with the best records. So the ones that have the undefeated records and the 1 loss and 2 loss records, primarily from the Big Ten and the SEC, are the ones that are always valued as the best. Are they
Yeah.
the best talent every single year? No, but they are some of the better players on the better teams. There are talent out there, guys like Travis Hunter, for example, at Colorado, that usually fly under the radar. They didn't this year because they have the Deion Sanders effect keeping them, up in terms of like giving
Yeah.
them a national spotlight. So, hey, if that's what happens, it's just a matter of, if you're Miami, you just need to embrace it and need to let people know. Like, if you're worried about players that are going to care about what their rankings are at the end of the day and what their number looks like next to the TV screen, you do want to have some of those guys because they are the best talent, but you shouldn't prioritize those guys. Your core group of people have to be the ones that say, we don't care what that is. All I care about is what the scoreboard is at the end of the day, and that I'm going to get to the next level regardless. That was Cam Ward. That's why he came to Miami, and that's who they need to keep finding.
Yeah, and you'll see this narrative online, and I don't want to make light of it because I will say another thing that'll probably piss off UM fans after I ask you this question. But I think, Jackson said it was development over dollars. There's this narrative that a lot of people are saying is that Miami is buying their players. The only reason why Cantwell went there is because of his NIL package he got here at Miami. What do you think this says? Whether it's the NIL, so whether you think it's dollars over development, development over dollars, what do you think this says about the current state of college football with the number one pick coming to Miami over a traditional powerhouse like an Ohio State or an Oregon or
I,
Georgia? I
on it,
forgot Georgia. Yeah, I'm so over Georgia at this point. I'm forgetting about them, but
that's
yeah,
fine.
Georgia.
I would honestly say it's just, look, there's always going to be some sort of an excuse that the media, that other fans, that other programs are always going to say. Like, I know you have in a storyline. We'll talk about the NIL roster money in a little bit, but like this, there's always going to be something that they say. They said, "Oh, well, Miami paid their players in the '80s and the '90s. Oh, well, they did this all the time." That has nothing to do with it. I mean, if you just take Jackson Cantwell's statement on its own, development
Mhm.
over dollars, offensive linemen are not the people historically who are going to gather huge NIL deals. Unless somebody out of college has the Jason Kelsey personality already developed at that age, which, by the way, most of them don't at that
Right.
point, your NIL dollars go to the sexy positions. They go to your
Yeah. Your
quarterbacks, they go to your
specialties.
skill
Yeah.
position guys, your running
Yep.
backs, your wide receivers, your defensive backs. Guys like that are the ones that always get the NIL deals because they're the ones that have the more prototypical body type of somebody that's going to be the spokesperson for all these things, that's going to be the most bombastic personality. You don't get offensive linemen who do that. So, of course, it's probably going to be development over dollars because you're talking about the guys who are offensive linemen running the ship, who have eat, breathe, sleep, go number 2 in the morning with offensive line on their mind. Like, it doesn't matter what they're doing, always
Yeah.
gonna have that on their mind. So they speak nerdy offensive lineman language all the time. That's where you want to go if you're a lineman. Traditionally, yeah, that's in the Midwest because all those guys are corn fed
Corn fed.
white mans. Exactly. Like that's where you usually see them. But now they're coming to Miami because, by the way, they're diversifying everything. What Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal have done really, really well is not only are they getting the best offensive line talent, but they're forming kind of like that, not to draw too many lines back to 2001. Like the idea of like this United Nations offensive line. If you look at that line from back in the day, you had a
Right.
couple of African American guys like Vernon Carey was a backup. You had Bryant McKinney on that. You had a Persian American and Shergo Hashi Razuli. You had a Latin guy in Joaquin Gonzalez. You had a white guy in Brett Romberg. You had a Canadian in Brett Romberg. You had a guy from Pennsylvania, Martin Bibla. Like that line had the best talent assembled from all over the country.
Yeah.
So you're looking at that now. You got guys who are Polynesian like CC Maui Noah. You've got a couple of African American guys who just left like Jalen Rivers. You've got now this guy from the Midwest, Jackson Cantwell, that's coming in. You're getting that same kind of blueprint where you're getting the best talent from all over the country and really internationally at this point to come to your program. And that's the story of Miami. So that's what made them, famous, what to put them on the map. And that's just part of that blueprint.
Yeah, and so I was alluding to saying a second thing that's probably going to piss a lot of fans off, but again, it's the truth, and we got to speak truth into to our family. As far as the current state of college football, I think we all have to just understand NIL is here to stay, right? And I think two things can be true at the same time. Yes, money was a factor, but it wasn't the factor, right? And so if you're going to sit there and try and say, "Oh, well, Jackson only came to Miami because the bag was bigger," and some estimates are saying 2.5 million. I whether it's 2.5, I don't really think it's that big of a deal in the sense that we're talking about players like Ohio State who spent 20 million on their roster last year, Oregon who easily spent 20 million on their roster last year, and then Georgia who probably spends anywhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20, 22 million every year since NIL's been in play. So it's not like we're talking about James Madison or Indiana, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. We're talking about players who all, for all intents and purposes, we all shop at the same stores, we all eat at the same restaurants, X, Y, and Z, you know? And so I think it did come down to development because when you look at the breadcrumbs of, and I think this Jackson Cantwell story is going to be a great one, and it's going to set a great precedent for Miami moving forward. Is Jackson Cantwell kept saying throughout his entire recruiting process, the most consistent, the most honest, and the most personable school that's been recruiting me has been Miami. Miami, Mario and Alex have been so genuine and so consistent with the way they recruit. Not only talking to Jackson, but his parents, establishing a vision and giving both parents and the kid a vision for his future and where he's going to go and how he's going to develop. I think those are really important things. And I think you look at the history too. A lot of, I mean, I jumped online today to see what the Bulldog Nation's been talking about and what a lot of Georgia fans have been talking about, and they're hearkening on this NIL thing, and it had to have been the money. It had to have been the money. And if you look, I just did like a rough estimate, just went down, just did a quick glance of O linemen that have been drafted from Georgia. Mario is not out of their league. it's not like Georgia's had like since Kirby's taken over in 2015. It's not like in the last 10 years they've had 45 linemen taken, or every year there's a lineman going in the first round or first 2 days of the draft. That's not it at all. But if you look at Mario in the last 10 years, the same time period, both at Oregon and here, the man is consistent. Him and Alex are consistent with not only getting guys in the draft, but here's the more important part, giving them, building a foundation for them to have success at the next level. Right. And I think that's what Jackson saw. I think Jackson saw that, yes, money is going to play a factor, but that's everyone. Again, all four of these teams, we're all starting at the same level. It's not like Oregon's pockets are hurting. We all know Ohio State's pockets aren't hurting. We certainly know Georgia's pockets aren't hurting. But I think when you look at who's going to develop, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Dan Lanning's a great coach. I don't want this to be slight at him, but I think a lot of his linemen, he's still running on Mario's guys, and he's running on Mario's steam. Those guys that went there that have been good talent, that have developed, that have been good, are seeing the allure of that. And those are actually Mario's guys. Those aren't Dan's guys. You know what I mean? And the same thing at Ohio State. Ohio State has a great O line program too. Jackson was talking about it yesterday, but I think when you look at it, Miami just offered the better package. They were consistent. They were genuine. It wasn't this, just come play for me and we can win games. There was probably some sort of connection made early on, and I think that's what Cantwell also suggested. They were one of the first ones. Miami was one of the first teams to reach out to him, and if you're not first, you're last. Um,
You want to shoot a
so,
hole, by the way, in that whole NIL money situation
mhm.
anyway? Okay. Let's say the number was like, what do you say, 2.4 million, whatever it was for
Yeah, I
Jackson
think
and
it's somewhere
Miami?
between 2 and 2.5. It's somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. How far does that take you in Miami versus 2 million NIL in Athens, Georgia, or 2 million in Columbus, Ohio?
Absolutely.
How much more of a king do you live in those markets where the cost of living is so much lower than being in a place like Miami? So if you want to talk about people spending a lot of money to come here, oh, well, they're getting more money. They're not getting anywhere near with it. If we're going to start seeing Jackson Cantwell over at Prime 112 a couple times a week, just know that that money is not going to go as far as if he was in a different market. So it's not just about the money, it's the total package of everything else. And again, there are plenty of other programs that spend more than Miami, that have bigger range than Miami. One of them just won the national championship. The other one made the semifinals of the college football playoff to play for the national championship, who won the Big Ten. So the money, Miami's not in the top four in that category. So it's
All
not
four of
just
them
that.
were in the semis. I mean, all three of them were in the semis.
Exactly.
All the teams that what we were against, and it's okay. Listen, it's okay to say yes, money was a factor. And here's the
Yeah.
thing: this is what I wanted to get to with this question. With where does it say about the state of college football? This is something we as Miami fans have to understand, and it's okay. You have to own it, like the villain role, right? Maybe we did outbid people, but good. Because what
Yeah.
that
That's what we're
says
here for.
now is what used to be done under the table, what we used to get in trouble for, is now legal. And so everyone's now on the same playing field. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay in Columbus? Do you want to stay in Athens? Do you want to go to Eugene or do you want to come to Miami? Because you're going to get paid roughly the same everywhere. You're going to have good coaches. I mean, look at the talent we've developed, right? Like the talent we're bringing in. Clearly, it's not just money. Money would only last so long, or you would have like a Francis Maui Noah, for example, in his first 2 years with the potential that he has to be a first rounder. Say, if these coaches aren't it, I'm out after 2 years, and I can easily get an equal bag at Oregon. I can easily get an equal bag at these other two schools, right? But it's okay. It's okay to say money played a factor because again, like I said, two things can be true at the same time, and I do think money did play a factor. I just don't think it played the factor. What I think it did was it eliminated the allure of an Oregon, of an Ohio State, of a Georgia. It took that prestige that so many kids were blinded by for so many years and the under the table compensation, removing that. Now everyone's playing at a similar level, you know? Uh,
It's a lot more fun to have a bidding war out in public than it is to see your entire roster in Tuscaloosa driving the same Dodge Charger everywhere. Yeah,
exactly.
totally
And
agree.
it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Maybe we'll get some more guardrails on it, hopefully.